Welcome back to the study of the moral heart. Thank you to those who are here today helping, and thank you to everyone watching. We're continuing on with the study of the moral heart. Let this mind be in you, which was also in Christ Jesus. And what does this mind look like? Section 1C, the mind in relation to choice. So lifting the mind up out of the fog, up into the light of day. I'm doing these studies here to clear some of the fog off mysteries, clutter, and confusing assumptions. By using the model system, fog, thought impossible to clear, vanishes. So continuing building the model. What does this mind look like? There's advantages in using the model system with the two domains, the observable domain and the model domain. And taking what we do know in the observable and transforming it into the model domain, and continue building our model. Progress so far, we have begun to build the model, identified 3 primary faculties, differentiated between them, defined the fundamental functions by illustrations, verified their relationship to each other, or one to the other, by demonstration. And to sum up, the will has power over the attention, the intellect directly, through the attention, and that's involuntary. The outward actions directly, and that's involuntary. The thinking and thoughts indirectly, through the attention, and the emotions through the thought, following the thoughts coming after the attention. So, how much power and freedom do we have? What ruling power, sovereignty does the will have in and over the mind and body? It's direct control over the outward actions, that's involuntary. Direct control over the attention, that's involuntary. Indirectly control the thinking and thoughts, which is involuntary. And indirectly control the emotions, that's involuntary. So the will is the only free and voluntary faculty. As far as we have built the model, the will has all of our being under its control and has freedom to use it all. You may well say, the mind is not that simple. And I agree. There's much more going on than is presently shown in our model. However, we must not forget the facts. Facts we have established up to this point. We need to add more faculties and functions, focusing on the mind in relation to morality, either directly or indirectly. A passage of scripture that addresses this is, now finish the work, out of 2 Corinthians 8:12. Finish the work so that your eager willingness to do it may be matched by your completion of it according to your means. For if the willingness is there, the gift is acceptable according to what one has, and not according to what one does not have. So the issue is really, what do we have here? And that's what we're looking at. How much control, what have we got? So, how much freedom do we really have? We still have not looked at what does the will do with all the power and freedom it has. Motives, what drives and inspires the will? What place does choice play? And what relation does choice hold to freedom? Before we solve these questions, more pieces of the mind are needed to be identified. So we're adding more faculties and functions. Moving along, bringing in the faculties of sense. No, we got the others. We got to do these, yeah. So the faculties and functions we still need to bring in are the sense, the motives, choice, the heart, reason, conscience, understanding, consciousness, and self-consciousness. But we're going to bring in the sense first. So, bringing in the sense. And before I do that, I want to rename the faculty emotions to sensibility, because that is the more accurate term, more accurate name for this faculty. So it is the part of the mind that makes us conscious of sensation. Sources of sensation. Where do they come from? Sensations have two sources. The inner sense, which we have already demonstrated in connection following the thoughts and thinking and thoughts. So the inner sense follows the thinking and thoughts. The outer sense is where we see, smell, taste, hear, and feel. The sensibility notices the sensation and then brings the sensation up onto the field of consciousness. So the field of consciousness is where we actually become aware of sensation. The sensibility is really the part of the mind that makes us conscious of sensation, or the sensibility brings sensation up onto the field of consciousness. And then we become aware of that and we see it. So I illustrate this by the arrow. And so at first we do not know what caused the sensation. The knowing comes after 3 steps: receiving, processing, and conclusion. The understanding is the faculty that does this processing. The understanding is a part of the intellect. It's a critical part of the intellect. It's a part that it sees sense directly, but doesn't directly see the source. So the source is not known. There is a 3-step process. Instantly, the understanding, or we become aware of the sensation. Then there's a process to determine what caused the sensation. And third, we make an assumption, best guess, hypothesis, speculate, predict what it actually is. So to repeat, those sensations do appear in consciousness directly. And that process is we instantly become aware of the sensation. Then the process to determine what caused the sensation, and we make an assumption, best guess, the hypothesis, speculate, predict. The understanding lies back of consciousness, just below consciousness, the part of the mind that is not currently in focal awareness. So if we run the process through, kind of just as an automatic smooth running, we see the 3 steps. We receive the sense, process to determine the source or cause, and then bring the conclusion into consciousness. And that's from the inner sense, the one that I'm running there. So we see the input directly and then process, so we see the input directly, whether it comes from the outer sense or the inner sense. And the understanding picks it up. There's a process, but it's brought by the sensation, which that arrow's not there now, but brought up into consciousness, the process, and then it's brought back up into consciousness again. And we see the output directly as a hypothesis, a speculation, an assumption of premises, deductions, concludes, guesses, supposes, notions, opinions, theories, conjectures, and beliefs, and more. These can be perfectly correct, absolutely correct. They can be erroneous, or they can be dead wrong. And we will hold that they're, whether they're perfectly correct, 100% correct, or partly correct, but erroneous, or dead wrong, we will hold them as certain true in all three cases. We still have not looked at feelings in relation to the will. Feelings in relation to the will. What inspires the will? What influences the will to have? What influences do feelings have on the will? Before we solve these questions, more pieces of mind need identifying. So, feelings in relation to the will. Feelings that appear in consciousness as illustrated and also as motives to the will. So they happen, there's two things. They appear in consciousness and they're motives to the will. They both happen in tandem. So feelings in relation to the will. Coming from the outer sense, I will run this through, and just basically run it right through. So the feelings from the outer sense, and then they make an appeal to the will. So these feelings now that are there, aroused from either inner or outer, but they're making an appeal to the will. So if we can do it, run it through, feelings from the inner sense, also make an appeal to the will. So both sources of sense, it does not matter, either inner or outer, they produce feelings. And the feelings have an influence on the will. In this case, both make an appeal to the will. So that there's a choice, the power to choose, to do or to not do. What influence do these feelings have on the will? We can, here's a list of few: entice, tempt, draw, charm, pull. Those are some of the influences that the feelings can have on the will. They're really influencing the will to make a choice. These are all influences to the will. And there's desires and needs, longings, wants. Those are just more of the influence that the sensibility, the feelings, put on the will in order to make a choice. So it's the power to choose to do or to not do. So this is the account in Genesis Genesis 1, Genesis 3, verse 1 to 6. There's the first written account we have of this going on and the decision being made. And it says, "Now the serpent was more crafty than any other beast of the field that the Lord God had made. He said to the woman, 'Did God actually say, you shall not eat of any tree in the garden?' And the woman said to the serpent, 'We may eat of the fruit of the trees in the garden. But God said, you shall not eat of the fruit of the tree that is in the midst of the garden, neither shall you touch it, lest you die.' But the serpent said to the woman, 'You will not surely die, for God knows that when you eat of it, your eyes will be opened, and you will be like God, knowing good and evil.' So when the woman saw that the tree was good for food, and that it was a delight to the eyes, and the tree was to be desired to make one wise, she took of its fruit and ate. And she also gave some to her husband, who was with her, and he ate." So now when we go in this here, we can go and we can, the woman saw the tree, so there was the eyes, the seeing from the outer sense. It was good for food, so the food connections. It was a delight to the eyes, so there was the delight thing, which all produce feelings, emotions, that put an influence on the will. The tree was to be desired to make one wise. She made a choice, and took the fruit and ate it. So that gives the account of this going on. So when we run through this, so the serpent accessed Eve's mind. Sorry, but read that through again. The serpent's access to Eve's mind was through the outer sense. And that's then to make an appeal to the will. And all of those things in there made appeals and desires and the names that we had here that were done. So the serpent's access to Eve's mind indirectly through her inner sense, which also was going on and is referred to in that passage where she's looking at it, and also made an appeal to the will. So she had an appeal to the will, this enticing, this drawing, this lure, this whole thing from both outer sense and inner sense. In this case, both made the appeal. So she made a choice, and that's what we're talking about, the choice she took and ate. So she did it. She made the choice, the power to choose to do or not to do. Here's a list of a bunch of the things. So like lure, entice, charm, draw, tempt, appeal. Those are some of the those temptations, feelings that are presented to the will, and the desires, needs, longings, wants, basically to tempt her or encourage her, entice her to make a choice, to go against what she was told to do, and she chose to do that. But what was the choice of Eve's will when the serpent showed up? And what does she say her choice is? Basically, she is fine with God saying they can eat from all the trees in the garden except from the one in the middle. It didn't seem to be a problem until he showed up. So that's the record of it, that account in Genesis where that goes on, and he had desires, so she referred to that she desired it. The serpent lured her attention onto the tree, the fruit, through the outer sense? And was her attention on the tree, fruit, an act of her will? Good question, right? Was her attention being on it an act of Eve's will? How could she, or how should she, have acted on what she was being told? Why was the will involved? And what choices did she have? The connection between the sensibility and the intention can be overrode by the will, because the will has the direct control over the attention. So just like the passage says, that she could do. So the woman, when the woman saw that the tree was good for food, and that it was a delight to the eyes, and the tree was to be desired to make one wise, she took the fruit and ate. So hope this has been a challenge to you. It challenged you to think. Homework for you. Read the passage and look at truly applying it into the model, and then take other passages and other experiences of your life and apply them into the model, and try and apply them into the model and see how they fit. And there's much more to come. Our journey has just begun. Thank you for this time.